Nata Edwards joins us once again to share his opinions on the upcoming NBA draft. We have another mock draft out of ESPN. And then we are going to talk about the reaction to the LaMelo Ball discourse, the trade discourse. We'll get to all of it today. Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. You can find him on his substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. And lately, you've been able to hear Nata on WFNZ, Wes and Walker, from basically 1 to 2 p.m. Like once a month, it feels like what we're doing right now.
That's all they'll allow. That's all they'll allow.
Yeah, it's too dangerous for radio. Doug is Nata. We can give an appetizer for Nata, and then he'll get too dangerous if we let him on anymore. Find him on his podcast. He produces the Eye-on College Basketball Podcast. It is the college basketball podcast out there. Eye-on College Basketball with Matt Norlander and Gary Parrish. You ready to talk some more draft here, Nata?
Let's do it because things have changed. Again, big boards get updated all the time. I've updated my big board. So there have been some changes. One change has not really changed, but outside of that, like there's been some changes.
Okay, let's get to it then, because you're right. You shared this yesterday, but share it for the fine listeners of the Locked On Hornets universe. What's the biggest opinion that has changed for you as we get closer and closer to the selection process?
Reed Shepard has entered the chat as someone that had just said on this podcast, not even 3 weeks ago, not really a fit. I didn't see a fit. And then I ironically had a conversation with my father, Hornet Sicko himself, and season ticket holder. Not those are probably like tied together in some way.
That's right, same thing.
But he mentioned like if Charles Lee is going to bring this 5-out system to the Hornets, you're going to need a shooter. And what better point than having a 52% shooter that shot it from decent volume and appears to be very gifted, and might be able to play the point guard position should a certain superstar get hurt. So he fits in here better than I would say I initially thought. And after going and looking back at some games, I will admit the Oakland game did kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. But you have the Texas A&M game, you have the Mississippi State game, you have a lot of games where he showed a lot of gifts and specifically volume shooting. And for a team that is in desperate need of perimeter shooting, Reed Shepard has shot up to number 2. Number 1 will always be Stefon Castle because I don't think there's a better plug-and-play fit in this draft. But number 2 right now is Stefon Castle. Number 3, Ron Holland. I prefer him to a Dalton Connect at this point.
What do you think, Doug?
I can't envision at this point Reed Shepard. I mean, he's been talked about at 3 to Houston.
Yeah.
But then I was listening to the Ringer draft show, and they said that maybe that was a little bit overblown, that Houston wasn't. I mean, they've been wanting – it seems like they want to get out of that pick, but even if they stay in that pick, they may not go Shepard there. But I cannot imagine Shepard making it past San Antonio, who you just sort of lauded Shepard for his ability to plug in at point guard.
Yeah. They
need a point guard. They need a shooting guard. They need guard play in general. And in a post-Nikola Topic injury world, I would have put Topic in that spot. But I think, now you really have to plug Shepard. I can't see him making it past San Antonio. I think the nightmare scenario for the Charlotte Hornets in this draft is that both Castle and Reed Shepard go in the top 5. I think that's very possible. But I think if you want the best player in the draft that could potentially fall to 6, it's one of those 2 guys.
So, San Antonio drafting 8th, so they would have to leapfrog the Hornets for Reed Shepard to be off of the table there. So the Hornets would still have their shot there, but still your larger point understood, because this is somebody that I think that most people would have within the top 5, right? We've seen some mock
San
drafts.
Antonio's got 4, right? San Antonio's got 4.
Yeah, San Antonio does have 4 and 8.
Oh, that's right. I apologize.
I'm sorry. That's what I meant. Yeah, I don't think he makes it past 4.
No, that's true. Okay, so San Antonio does have 4, and they have 8.
I had to triple check myself because my relationship with the facts is famously tenuous on this show. So I had to triple check myself.
I took that from you. Yeah, San Antonio. Most people have Reed Sheppard in the top 5. So if he fell past San Antonio, maybe Reed Sheppard would be a fit there for Detroit, even though they have a couple backcourt players. But either way, does that feel? I don't want to say pie in the sky. I don't know if anybody is the pie in this NBA draft. I don't know if anybody fits that bill.
It's all misfit toys. We talked about this yesterday.
Yeah.
This is quite literally the island of misfit toys, or better yet, the open box special of NBA drafts.
Well, what is Reed's misfit quality in your mind? Like, what makes him, one of the misfit toys here?
For at least Charlotte, the size. He is 6'1", and he is one of those guys with 6'4" wingspan. He can really just play maybe one position. You might be able to stretch him out, maybe get him to guard 2, similar to a Terry Rozier. But at the same point, he is a shooter first. He is maybe a point guard next. It's going to be one of those things where you're going to be developing a lot of these guys on the fly. I think I know I told Walker this. I'm sorry I didn't tell you this, Doug, but for this draft, I feel like we're going to see the most first-round picks in the G League off of this draft. These guys are going to be role players at first, and then they develop into possible starters. But this is going to be one of those like, it's not quick grits. It's going to be one of those times where you're going to have to take your time, put a little chicken broth in there, stir it up a little bit, take your time, get that nice slow rolling boil, and get the grits properly done.
Sounds good.
Low and slow.
All right. Oh, yeah. Chicken broth?
But people are going to go nuts on that. I mean,
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if the Hornets, whoever they draft at 6, if he spends any time in the G League early on, people went nuts when they drafted Mark Williams. And Mark Williams was outside of the lottery, technically. And, they they went nuts then. So I can't imagine what would happen if the 6th pick goes to Greensboro.
But the question I would have for you, Doug, is do you see anybody both of y'all, do you see anybody from this, like anyone potentially that they draft? Do you see them starting? Because I don't at this point.
Yeah, we had this conversation, and we didn't necessarily think so. We talked about Klingon possibly being that guy, not even with the Mark Williams caveat of how healthy he is. I could see there just Klingon being a protector of the rim, being athletic enough to where maybe he would start more games, but I don't think he would start out as the starter. I think it would be Mark Williams as long as he was healthy, and then maybe if Klingon just impressed within his 15 up to 20 minutes per game, maybe that would be the case. I didn't see anybody else that I would feel like would start, and I feel pretty comfortable with it. Doug, you're there too, right?
I think, and I'm not advocating that they take this player necessarily. He's not the number one guy on my big board.
Oh, that's right.
But I think Dalton Connect, he would have to. I don't think. Well, here's how I would put it. I don't think there's anyone in this draft that's automatic. That like you draft them and he would. I think they would have to earn it. So you could put Castle in this category too. I think Castle and Connect. I think they could go to Las Vegas. They could come to training camp and they could earn a wing spot alongside Brandon Miller. I don't think Reed Sheppard could do that, not because he's not skilled, but because I think early on in his career, he's going to get like slotted as sort of a 6-man scoring punch off the bench that can hang there on defense because of what Nata said, the size issues. But I think Dalton Connect and Stefon Castle could certainly earn a starting spot.
I think they can, but I'm and the other thing you're not bringing up about Reed Sheppard is Trey Mann's right there. And Trey Mann is immediately a better defender. And I'm not disgusted by the defense of Reed Sheppard, kind of like I am with Dalton Connect, which is the only reason why I don't see him starting.
No, Sheppard's good. Like he's not amazing, but pretty good. The problem with Reed Sheppard and some of these guys is they don't have the wingspan to offset the height.
They got the T-Rex arms.
And what's worse is, I guess, unlike a T-Rex, their wingspan is proportional to their size. They're just so small that you would rather it not be proportional. You'd rather it be reverse T-Rex. You'd rather be a condor, just to borrow a phrase from Eric Collins. And that's not the case with these guys. It's not the case. And so you could talk yourself into it more. So
here's the thing about Connect, though, and this is why I put him in terms of like guys that have the best chance to start for the Hornets immediately. I put him slightly over Castle, is because Connect is somebody that I think is going to want the ball in his hands less. We talked about how well he did off of screens in Tennessee. Like, you could run plays for him, but doesn't need to handle the ball. If Castle really is adamant about like being a point guard, and you play him at 2, and he tries to act like it with LaMelo Ball, like that's not going to work. You know, if he really wants to play point guard, he would be doing it most likely from the second unit. So that's why I think Connect is the one guy you could draft if you wanted an immediate starter. But I don't think the more and we'll talk about Coach Lee in the next episode, but there's this quote from this latest article. This is going to be me teasing ahead to the next episode. There's a quote in this latest write-up that Mark Spears did that makes me think like they're not interested in starters or, you know, winning now or anything like that. So, you know, I'm not advocating to take Connect, but that's the guy.
All right, so there's the teaser to the next episode. Let's give you a tease to the next segment. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
We have another ESPN mock. We've been going to the worldwide leader a couple times this week.
They've been on it this year.
Yeah.
Yep. We're going to go. Is he still Phony Gavoni?
When he's doing a mock draft, yeah. When he's being the speculator, when he's trying to give you the hot goss, yeah, he's Phony Gavoni. But when he's just scouting players, I like it.
Okay. All right. Not so Phony Gavoni on the other side of the break. Coming up next. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. We all carry around different stressors, whether it's big or small. When we keep them bottled up, it can start to affect us negatively. Therapy is a safe space to get those things off of your chest and to figure out how to work through whatever is weighing you down. If you're thinking of starting therapy, then give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and then you can even switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Get it off of your chest with BetterHelp, and you can do so visiting betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Got a lot of questions, rapid fire questions in the Sicko Satchel. You are the keeper of both mock drafts and the Sicko Satchel. Doug, floor's yours, buddy. I mean, this is your segment to shine.
Well, so in the latest ESPN mock draft, Gavoni and Wu both make a pick. That's when you know things are getting serious, folks. That's when you know you're in June and you've just got a couple of weeks left because normally they swap. Sometimes it's Gavoni, excuse me. Sometimes it's Wu. Now it's both Gavoni and Wu. And Gavoni and Wu, unfortunately, for the entertainment purposes of this podcast, have both selected the same player, and that player is Stefon Castle of UConn. And both of them are going with fit here. They're saying you can play this guy alongside Brandon Miller. He offers the defensive upgrades right off the top. And I think something that's interesting that Gavoni points out is that he writes, is the last sentence in his little blurb, all of Castle's strengths and intangibles would likely be important for Charlotte's new regime. And that intangible is that this dude has got a fire in his belly. He wants it. He wants to be great. And obviously he wants to play point guard, but at least he knows what he wants. At least he's, out there, and, he might not be totally satisfied with being in Charlotte, but he wants to be a great player.
I would also caution everybody on the he wants to be a point guard thing. He has walked that back. And I think a lot of the reason he's kind of walked that back is because he's heard from the league. And again, it goes back to the Ice Age analogy I made a couple weeks ago. He may think he's a point guard. The league thinks he's a wing, and therefore that's what he'll end up being.
Well, and I'll just say, if you walk things back as a point guard, that's a turnover. You don't want to do that.
True. Very true.
You know,
only so far, man. Yeah, can't go over that half court line. Don't do that, or it will definitely be a turnover. My question is, has he walked himself back enough to be back on Doug's draftable list?
Let me check. No. Here's the thing. Once you're off, you're off. I know. And once you have a draft rose, you don't lose the draft rose. Okay.
Oh,
these things are immutable. But he's off.
Immutable. I just wanted to know. I didn't know if that was enough to get back on your draft list. He's never left mine. In fact, I do wonder, with you bringing that point up, Nata, how much of it was the fact that he feels he can do a lot more, but he's trying to climb some of these draft boards to say that he can, And then that didn't go over so well. And so now he's like, man, I was just playing. I got a little ahead of myself. Like,
no, that's absolutely what happened. His agents were like, we're going to play this. And then they played it and it didn't get received well. And that's when you start getting all the conversations of, well, we don't really need a point guard. We need a defensive wing. And I will say this, I will defend him in this regard. He did sacrifice a lot, but at the same point, he was one of the guys that showed that sacrifice to win. So the fact that he mentioned that sacrifice was probably the dumbest thing he could have done, because quite literally, had he just said, look, the tape speaks for itself, he would probably, he'd still be in the top 4. It's just he wouldn't have the stink of the prima donna, I'm this, I'm that. And unfortunately, that's what he's got right now.
It feels like even if it's true, we didn't want to hear it from that specific messenger. Because also, I was asking the question, Nata, okay, you win a championship, you have a ring. If you were to go back to school, which wasn't going to happen because he was going to be a top 10 pick, he might be top 5. But if he was going to go back to school with a ring already in hand, would he just transfer to a different program because he sacrificed so much and wanted to be more of a guy that could score 20? I was at
He'd
least
be the starting point guard at UConn right now if he came back. That's where he was. That's where he would be. He would probably end up being the starting point guard because of the fact that Tristan Newton left. So
yeah,
I get what, if he came back with the ring and he wanted to come back with Caravan and all that, then yeah, it would have made sense. But for the most part, he would have been the point guard, but he didn't want it. He chose, I need to go get this money right now, over showing, hey, I'm a point guard.
Sicko Satchel time. What you got, Doug?
The first one comes to us, I should say, from Rima. Rima says, what current Hornets players aren't making it to media day? There are a couple that are on the fence here, right? We've got Bertans' contract that could be restructured or could be waived altogether, I think, before a certain deadline. You've got some of these trade pieces. Are they going to stick around? Who's not making it to media day, Nata?
Bryce McGowan's feels easy. JT Thor feels easy. Miles Bridges feels really easy to predict.
Oh, wow.
And then I'm going to go Cody Martin, and my surprise will be Vasa Micic. Won't make it either.
Okay, that's a lot. That's a spicy sandwich, Nata, and I appreciate you serving us that
You're
spicy sandwich. Yeah, Bryce, for me, if I were to make sure I got this one right, JT Thor would be my answer. If I had one player to go all in with, I think JT would be my answer. Bryce McGowan's in there. It makes sense with Trey Mann and Vasa Micic. You're going to draft somebody at 6. But Miles Bridges, how much are we? I know, Doug, you teased the next episode with some of the Miles Bridges combo, but Nata, why so easily predictable in your eyes that Miles Bridges won't make it to media day?
$30 million in cap space. Do I need to say more?
You don't have to. That's fine. Doug, you were surprised about it too, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that with so much talk about Miles Bridges wanting to be here, I think it would be a surprise to a lot of people who haven't paid close attention that he wouldn't make it, because it just and everything that the Hornets they sacrificed 2 off seasons to hang with this guy. For him not to come back would be, and I know it's different people, right? I mean, it was Kupchak that made all those decisions, and Jordan, and this is Jeff Peterson, and this is Rick Schnall and Schlotkin. It's Rick Schnall and Gabe Plotkin. Which is the name that I think Jeff Peterson should refer to them as to save himself some time. Don't go Schnall and Plotkin, just say Schlotkin. 2 owners, too many. You got to get it down to one name. But I think I digress. It would just be like, I don't even. It would just blow my mind that all of this would end with him not being a part of the Charlotte Hornets long term after everything that the franchise sacrificed to hang with him. But I think you're right, Nata. I mean, if I were betting, I would bet that Miles Bridges doesn't make it to media day. I would bet Bertans, because the contract is both juicy as a trade piece because it's so high, and it could be restructured, waived altogether if you needed some additional cap space. That would be an easy one to flush out of the system. Though the counter argument to that is he could, if you did restructure, he could become cheap shooting, which is something the Hornets would probably need, regardless, like in the short term, just to make them an entertaining team, to make them competitive. But in the long term, you're going to need that as well. Yeah, Thor for sure. Bryce, I think they hang around with Bryce. I don't know. I just got a feeling like Bryce just hangs around the system. I don't know in what capacity. I just feel like Bryce hangs around the system for one more year.
Another Sicko Satchel question?
Yes. This is rapid fire. You ready? Rapid fire.
Okay. Yep, let's hit it.
This is from Amber. Rapid fire set of Sicko Satchel questions. This is what Amber says. My lack of Hornets news has sparked a Sicko Satchel manic episode. Here are the questions. Is Charles Lee's coaching staff going to see a pay bump to stay on pace with the rest of the league? Nata.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes, agree.
Yeah, I think so. You gotta. I mean,
Yeah.
Hopefully it starts.
Especially with the names.
You can control that. Schlotkin, listen to me. Yeah, they've got to continue to bring in great names and pay them. Mm-hmm. Okay, next. Oh, this one's going to hurt Walker. Is the James Najee dream over for Walker? Nada.
Oh, no, it's absolutely over. Done.
Well, we should say he got an injury in Barcelona and is reduced playing time, and it hasn't gone well there in Barcelona. And Mitch Kupchak is gone, so Walker's the dream dead.
You didn't have to twist the knife, Nata. You didn't have to do that. It's okay to just pull
Would
it
it
out.
be me if I didn't?
I'm still holding on hope. Next question.
All right, this one's gonna hurt me. Maybe hurt me. Maybe make me dream a little bit. Is the Lonnie Walker the fourth dream starting for Doug? Nada. Is the Lonnie Walker the fourth dream starting for me?
You could bring in worse talent, and the Charlotte Hornets have. So I think it's starting.
That should be their press release as soon as they sign him. We can do worse. Lonnie Walker.
We have done worse.
And we can do worse, and we have. I think there's a possibility for sure. Cheap pickup? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he was looking like a possible Sixth Man of the Year candidate for the Nets before he got hurt last year. I mean, he was scoring all over the place, both driving and shooting threes. Once he came back from injury, his three-point shooting hung around, but his rim percentage went down pretty significantly. The big question mark is defense. Like, if you're trying to improve the defensive qualities of this team, Lonnie Walker would be a big investment in the offense, not so much in the defense. So is the dream starting? Sure, why not? Free agency, baby. Let's get it started. I think Isaac Okoro would probably be a better pickup than Lonnie Walker, all things being equal.
Okay.
Final one. Can I delete my Bally Sports app? I want to so bad. Nada, can Amber delete the Bally Sports app?
I wouldn't. Not yet. Not yet. It's not safe yet. We don't know. And this, like, the longer this goes, the more I'm like, damn it, I'm going to have to re-up this, aren't I?
It's such a pain. I don't think so either. I'm not doing it until I know for sure, but I would not delete it yet. Although, once you do, just pour a glass of wine and celebrate and get some confetti and get some of those noisemakers that people have on New Year's, and then you can just celebrate once you're able to delete it. Please do that.
You could try to delete it. I don't think it would let you. I think an error message would pop up.
It's a great point.
Yeah, it's a great point.
I think your phone would be bricked, or whatever device you're using to watch it, it would brick itself at that point. Bally is really getting out of here kicking and screaming. Mostly screaming.
I actually just rewatched Spider-Man 2 for the first time in a long time, and I feel like if you, hey, solid.
Wait,
okay?
which Spider-Man 2? There's been like 9 versions of the franchise now. Are you talking about the original, like Sam Raimi Spider-Man 2?
No. I'm talking Doc Ock. I'm talking Alfred Molina.
That's the Sam Raimi original Spider-Man 2.
Okay.
I think we've never talked about this, and I don't know if now's the right time.
No, it's
but
not.
I think Spider-Man 2 is one of the worst films of all time. Not worst superhero films. I think it's one of the worst when Aunt May is giving a monologue while what's her name is running in the wedding dress. It's just like Mary Jane, but I can't remember the Kirsten Dunst.
Kirsten Dunst. Yeah.
Kirsten Dunst.
Schlotkin.
That is one of the worst scenes in movie history. I know people laud that movie. I don't understand it. It's one of the things that makes me craziest in this entire world. I laughed while I was in the theaters. I will never see it again. It's a horrible movie. Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, that was one of the only redeeming qualities of the movie, but it was a terrible movie.
Sir, it's not even the worst in the Raimi series. Spider-Man 3 is worse.
Wait, I don't. You know what?
worse.
You know, you
It's
might
totally
be
worse.
right. You might be right.
Never
But
seen
after
it.
2, I was like, forget it. I will never waste another dollar on a. I barely decided to see the one where Tobey Maguire came back. Spoiler alert for
Yeah.
in the multiverse one. I'm so mad at Sam Raimi for ruining Spider-Man for me. One of my favorite superhero characters. That movie's terrible.
All that to say,
Yeah, what was your point?
the Bally Sports app becomes the arms of Doc Ock and takes control of the city as soon as you tried to delete it. Well, it let you, and it was also destroy Charlotte as we know it. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
I don't know what's coming up next. I think we have some Sicko Satchel questions. I know we have a
LaMelo
final
trade
segment.
conversation reactions. You reacted to our episode where we tried to trade LaMelo Ball.
That too, coming up next. Locked On Hornets. Spider-Man 3 is so much worse, by the way. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summertime means baseball and the NBA Finals, and even more than that. You can bet it all on FanDuel. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet everything from the Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. You can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, and you can add a big win to your summer bucket list. It's on my bucket list. I need one. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Again, FanDuel, big shout out to them. America's #1 sportsbook. One more segment to go. Locked On Hornets. I will say, today's show has been particularly hard to drive. We have had chaos all over the place. I do not have a handle on this thing. The car is in the ditch. I was not able to keep it on the road. Can't do it. It's impossible for me.
Oh, well, I'm not going to help with this next topic, which is you were doing your FanDuel read there, and I know some people, I know who you are. You're skipping these ads. Don't do it. Don't take money out of our pockets. But sometimes you skip the ads. So I need to tell you that Walker mentioned that something was on his bucket list. Now, I'd like to ask Nata, and I'll ask you individually. Nata, you first. How long do you think the term bucket list has been with us as a human race?
I want to say like 15 years because some of y'all know I was old enough to be working at Blockbuster. I remember when the movie came out on DVD.
I remember. Yes, that's what I thought of too. Yeah.
So yeah, the Jack Nicholson movie with Morgan Freeman, the nice buddy movie and everything else. So it's probably been about 15, 20 years.
That it's incredible. I mean, it's kind of ruins this because I was hoping you would say that it had been around a lot longer because I really thought that that the movie bucket list was taking a term that had been around for a long, long time. No, that movie, I think it may not shock you two individuals, and Nata, you're cheating because you worked at a Blockbuster. But like, I think that's going to shock someone listening is going to be shocked.
Oh, it will.
By the idea that that bucket list hasn't been around since like the 1940s. Like that, it was like, to me, it can't be a 21st century term. It had to be at least 20th century. But no, bucket list was created from a Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman joint.
A movie, by the way, that did not do well, right? I don't know. So the phrase, the title of the movie, I would love to know if we go through cinematic history, how many times the title of the movie was much, much more popular than the actual movie itself.
It's crazy. It's like, it would be like us walking around just using Con Air all the time. Like, I just got on Con Air again.
Ooh.
Like, I know, like, we don't do, like, it's crazy.
Like when you experienced a bad flight. How was your flight, sweetie? Oh, man, had to experience some real Con Air. Con Air?
It's incredible. It sounds like a term that has been around forever. Whoever came up with that, genius.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we say Miles Bridges is Con Air now that he's gotten older in the league?
No.
He wasn't quite Con.
You know what? That doesn't hit like I thought it was going to. In fact, it's a very different type of joke that you could say with Miles Bridges and Con Air. Yeah, it's not what I meant. I actually meant the fact that he can't get up like he used to, but you could use that in a different way. Either way, we can go to one of his ways. Yeah, we could, whatever. Feel free to take that however you want to. Let's instead go to well, hold on. Go ahead, Doug. Go ahead. Take the steering wheel, put us back in the ditch. It was
you were lamenting it a moment ago. You were lamenting me from the back seat getting in the front seat and snatching the wheel, and now you're desperate for it. I will do it, and I will tell you that on yesterday's show we decided we didn't decide. I mean, people have been speculating, particularly the Lowe post podcast with Jonathan Gavoni. Lowe was saying he was having some brewskis with a couple of front office insiders, and they were talking about how if they were in Jeff Peterson's seat, they would totally, first thing on the agenda would be to entertain a LaMelo Ball trade. And so we went down that thought experiment and talked about some teams and all that. You can go back and listen to that show. So then today I log on and I'm just like bracing myself for the reaction, for the comments. I'm not only from the LaMelo stans who are just religious about, although they tend to, if you talk about trading him, they actually tend to sort of zag because they want him to be traded because they don't really like the idea of him being in purple and teal. But then the normal sickos, as normal as you can be as a sicko, will also, get their underwear in bunches about those kinds of conversations typically. But I looked at the comments and I'm seeing a different tune now that LaMelo has spent 2 seasons mostly on the injured list. It looks like people, their fuse is kind of up on LaMelo Ball. They're saying, look, this guy's got to play. You've got a point, or those executives have a point. And that's just like crazy to me how far we've gotten from rookie of the year, all-star to, I don't know about this guy anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah,
he sounds like a Tyreke Evans type of thing. Where again, Tyreke Evans won the Rookie of the Year, and then never really got it there. But at the same point, I am one of those that believes you need to at least give him another year. And at $50 million and sight unseen, no one's really going to give you anything of value for him anyway.
Doug, that
name. It's making my eyes water. Like if you're watching this on YouTube, you saw a noticeable shift in me physically when you said Tyreke Evans. It's like a knife through my heart, because that is, to think that it's all going to end up that way is pretty devastating.
Well, yeah, at least we have an all-star appearance to our name here in LaMelo land. We don't have that with Tyreke, but I get your point. It looks so promising. It is crazy. You go back to the rookie season, and we were discussing how this guy could potentially be an MVP candidate, because I remember all the Brian Windhorst pieces on the difference with LaMelo being a rookie and the Rookie of the Year. It's not that he's good for a rookie. It's that he's affecting winning. Now, people have that exact counter argument that he doesn't affect winning, that he's a good stats, bad team guy when he is healthy, when it was the exact opposite his rookie season. So we have come a very long, painful way from what we used to discuss regarding LaMelo. And I long for those days. I'm sure most Hornets fans do, to get back to that LaMelo. But we all know the dude's got to play. And now that he has a backcourt mate in Brandon Miller, where we feel like both of those guys at their peak powers, Brandon in his second year, LaMelo, it's kind of crazy, man, going into his 5th season. I mean, just kind of an outright vet at this point with the second contract kicking in. It's nuts that we're here, but if LaMelo and Brandon can put together a healthy season together, I am excited about what that looks like. There's plenty of work to be done for the Hornets, plenty of work, but I too still am excited about what a healthy backcourt of those two could look like, trying to contend in the Eastern Conference.
I think I'm with you, Walker. I think it's way too soon. I do think that we're jumping the gun. I do understand why people are tired. I understand that they want to see, they're tired of the medical room being the most popular room in Spectrum. I understand that. I don't feel comfortable being like, yo, go trade him. Because you're most likely trading him for pennies on the dollar. 2, what's next? Because at some point you've got to put some sort of competitive product on the floor. And I'm not willing to, I know people are probably tired of losing. I'm not wanting to be in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, despite how tempting it is. Let's call everyone, I think, needs to take a breath this summer. touch some grass, go visit a pool, and just enjoy themselves. Like let's calm down about this LaMelo stuff.
Well, and Doug, last thing, I mean, you can end it here, but the point that you make with the reaction is that, yeah, it not only is it different where we were with LaMelo his first season, just where LaMelo is in his NBA career, but fans are in a very different spot. Then that reaction that we got to that episode is not the same as what it would have been a year ago when we had only just 1 year of injury concerns with LaMelo.
Yeah, so like there's this movie Catfish that came out in 2010. And so that makes sense that Catfish was created. Like I can believe that Catfish was not a word before 2010. That because Catfish just sounds like a modern word. Having a bucket list is not something that I would associate. I thought it was way older. And I'm looking at a list now of words that have been coined by movies, and The Godfather. Like using Godfather as a word, Godfather is a word that's been around, but using it, associating it with a mafia leader, was not something that was done prior to the 1972 classic Godfather.
I thought it was coined from Zach Lowe.
I thought Simmons. I thought that was
Danny
Simmons.
Ainge. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Danny Ainge, man. It was Sam Amick, right? Or yeah, that's how I thought it was. Anyways, I didn't know who it was. So, all right, man. What a wild one. That'll do it. Nata Edwards. Thanks, buddy. We appreciate it. Hopping on with us. As always.
I helped drive this into the ditch as well, so I feel like my job is done.
This is where listen. The summer shows, they belong in the ditch. We thrive, unlike other. And I'll say something to Dell Curry and Steph Curry, who I just saw are starting a podcast together. No one gets in the ditch like we do. If you want to wrestle us, you got to come to the ditch, baby.
We're right here. Nata Edwards, find him on the Eye-on College Basketball Podcast. He produces it. Find him on Twitter at Nata the Scribe. Doug Branson, Substack, Every Hornets Boxscore.com. Me, WFNZ, every weekday, 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Sorry about the Con Air thing.
Meet us in the ditch.